Let us move along now and welcome in our second to last guest of the day. He has been active on social media as well, hoping to get one more fight in the UFC for a very good cause. Let us say hello now to Daniel Kelly, who is joining us via the magic of Skype. Daniel, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
It's a pleasure. Good morning to you, right? It's 8 a.m. in Melbourne right now, Tuesday morning?
Yep.
Well,
that's right, 8 a.m.
I appreciate you doing this early in the morning over there. Thank you very much. So let's set the scene here, Dan. You are no longer under contract with the UFC, correct?
Yeah, no longer under contract.
But you would like one more fight. Why?
There's a card coming up in Melbourne, but last year when we were in Perth, I was a guest fighter. I saw Mark Hunt walk out with his son, and also I'm very close with Jake Matthews and his dad Mick, and I see the relationship they've got. And my son's 13 or just about to turn 13, and I'd like an opportunity to walk out with him.
You've never done this before, right?
No. I normally keep them away a little bit, but he's just started high school now, and he's had a lot of health issues along the way, and I'd like to share that with him one last time.
What is he battling?
So he's got a rare genetic disease called cystinosis that it's amino acid crystals attack all the organs around the body. He'll probably need a kidney transplant in the next couple of years, and it's an uphill battle.
How is he doing right now?
He's okay. High school hasn't been the greatest transition for him. He's okay. We medicate him about 20 times a day. He gets injections almost every day. We're up during the night to give him medicine because he needs something 6 hourly. So he's okay. It's a big routine thing for us now.
When you say that high school hasn't been the easiest transition, is it because kids not being, welcoming or thoughtful, bullying, that sort of thing?
A little bit. It's just he's a lot smaller than everyone else. It's hard for him to get around to all the classes, and a little bit of the acceptance thing too, I think.
Okay, and why have you never? And how many children do you have?
Two,
but you haven't brought your kids to your fights before. Why not?
Well, they were that little bit younger, and not that there's a stigma around it. I just didn't think they were old enough to be able to come and watch. But once you're a teenager, his friends watch the UFC. They all know all about it. And when I saw Mark walking out with Noah, and Noah's actually younger than Eric, I went, you know what? It's that would be a nice thing to do.
Yeah, nice thing to share with your son, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
There is a card in Adelaide next month, and I understand that you were vocal about trying to get on that card. Why didn't you get that opportunity?
I'm not sure. No response. UFC are a little bit like see what we can do, and then when we heard about the Melbourne card, we left that completely. And obviously, I'm from Melbourne, and I've had a couple of good performances in Melbourne before. I think it'd be a really cool way and a fitting way for me to finish my career.
So you want this to be your retirement fight?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 41 years old now, so there's a little bit of wear and tear on the body, and enough's enough. I put my family through enough with all the sacrifice fighting, and then my judo career before that. So I think that's enough now. And
your contract just like you finished out your contract. You didn't get released from the UFC. You just fought all the fights, correct?
Yeah, the last fight didn't. Well, the last few fights haven't gone well. I've still got a winning record in the UFC, 6-4, but the last few fights didn't go well. But the last one, I got hit in the eye with, I think, a thumb, and it was a legal shot, but it's taken 3 months for the eye to get better. I look at that more as an injury than anything else, and it doesn't sit well either. But I mean, that's the nature of the sport, and yeah, so yeah, I fought out all my fights on the contract and didn't get another contract.
Was there any talk before that last fight of extending your deal, or did you, like, before you saw what Mark did with his son, were you somewhat content with just riding out the contract and ending your career?
I asked the question, and then I think the policy now is that if you're coming off a loss, they won't renew your contract, which I was, and then I fought the last fight, and then yeah, I haven't had much contact with them since.
Okay, and you have management, right?
Yeah, I got Zen helping me
Yeah,
out.
Zen, the great Zen, who manages a lot of the Australian-based fighters, Mark Hunt, Tyson Pedro, Tai Tuivasa. Has he had any conversations with the UFC about you getting this final fight and doing this for your son?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a little bit of we'll see what we can do, and I want to jump on this now because it's 12 weeks in actual fact until Melbourne, and it'd be good to know yay or nay. I mean, I really want to do this. I want to have the one more fight in the hometown. It'd be perfect. Have Eric to be involved will be even better, and yeah. So fingers crossed. I'm hoping. I've had some good performances in Melbourne. I've had some performances in the UFC. So I think one more fight. It'd be good. It'd be good.
Sure. And have you told Eric about your quest to get this done?
Yeah, absolutely. He was in some media. We did when we gave it a little bit of a push earlier in the year, and he's excited. He was a little bit worried to start with. He said, "I don't want to be in the way," and I said, "Oh, the last thing you be is in the way." It'd be awesome to have you there and share that with you.
Do you think this will be a regret if you don't get this opportunity that you never did this earlier with your son?
Possibly, yeah. But again, at the time, he was a little bit too young. He was just a little bit too young. So there was I haven't fought in Australia for over a year, and he was still in primary school, and now he's at an age where it's appropriate, in my opinion, anyway.
What does his mother think about this?
It took a little while for her to get on board. She's a 5-time Olympian in judo and an Olympic bronze medalist, actually. So she's pretty good around all this kind of stuff. But it took a little bit of convincing, but she's on board now, which is good.
What do you say to someone who says you're 41, you're on a losing streak, like the UFC shouldn't be in the business of charity, right? They should, you had your time. What do you say to those people?
Yeah. I've still got a winning record in the UFC. The last few fights haven't gone well. A lot of other guys who have had a bad losing streak still get one more fight. I do have a lot of support here in Melbourne, but the fact of the matter is I still have a winning record in the UFC, and I've had some big wins in my career, and I started MMA when I was 34, 35. So, yeah, I am 41, but it'd be nice to go out that way, and I think it'd be good for the Melbourne fans as well to let me have one more crack.
If I'm a local promoter watching this, and I say I'd love to have Dan Kelly on my card, and I'd love to have him come out with his son, and I'll give you a main event slot. We could sell a lot of tickets. It will be great. Are you interested, or does it have to be the UFC?
I'd like it to be the UFC. I mean, it makes it worthwhile financially as well. Obviously, I have a lot to do with helping the promotions in Australia behind the scenes already, but yeah, I want to finish on the big stage, and then that's it.
I know, as you mentioned, that you have been public with this. Have any promotions reached out to you and said, we'd like to have you on the card, and you said you want to see if the UFC opportunity comes and goes first?
A little bit. Look, because I coach fighters as well. I'm constantly matching them on the local shows. It's been floated out there, but when we discussed kind of what I earn or what I would earn in the UFC compared to what they can offer, it almost bankrupts organisations at home, and I want to see local MMA in Australia grow because it's actually going quite well at the moment. We've got some really talented young guys coming up. Yeah,
and of course the champion Robert Whittaker fighting in the main event of that card. It was just recently announced. When you came out with this quest to walk out with your son, was that the first time that you spoke publicly about his condition?
No, when I was on the Ultimate Fighter show, it kind of popped up when you're in the under all that stress and emotional side of things in the house. It came out a little bit. It's popped up on and off in the media over the years, so it's not a brand new thing. People do know about it.
Okay, I was just curious about bringing a spotlight to a personal matter, a family matter. Is that something that you are comfortable with, or does it make you a little uncomfortable talking about it?
It does, but at the same time, it's a rare disease. It's a genetic disease. There's about 2,000 or 3,000 people in the world with cystinosis. So wow. Anytime I can bring awareness to the disease as well is going to help with treatments and possibly down the track finding a cure. They're doing amazing work with gene therapy at the moment, and anything I can do to push that wagon is good for the disease and good for my son as well.
And is this something that he's had his entire life?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we found out at 18 months old that he had the disease, and yeah, it's been a rough road. He used to have a feeding tube, which he doesn't have anymore. We're up, like I said, I'm up every night in the middle of the night to sit him up and give him medicine that's specific to the disease, which he needs to have every 6 hours. So yeah, it's 20 times a day he gets medicated. And so it's a process.
What exactly is going on? Like what is the disease about?
Okay, so amino acid crystals build up in all his organs, and the only way to get rid of them is with a drug called cystinosis. On top of that, because of the amino acid crystals, his kidneys don't work properly. So he gets a whole heap of basic electrolytes like phosphate, potassium, calcium in tablet form to compensate for that in his body. On top of that, the first organs to fail are his kidneys. So normally about between 13 and 16, the kids have kidney transplants, and then obviously the kidneys aren't an issue anymore, but then he's a transplant patient and he has the disease on top of that. So it's a big disease, and there's always stumbling blocks along the way and things you have to deal with.
And is he able to walk on his own? Like, is he fully functional, or does he need help in that regard?
No, he goes to school. He goes to school at the moment. Normal school. He has an aide to help him out as well. He's switched on. Or if you saw him, you go, okay, he's just a kid who's a lot smaller than he should be for his age. But there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that goes on just to make him, be able to go out and function relatively normally.
Does he go to the gym with you?
Yeah, he does. He does judo once a week under sufferance, but again, he has muscle wastage and things like that. So it's more to get him out and be active and do something rather than sitting at home and spending too much time on the screen, which I think is a battle for all parents nowadays.
Yes. Amen to that, my friend. Do you have an opponent in mind?
Not specifically. On social media, the Tim Boach, CB Dollaway have been both thrown out there. They're kind of good matches because they're both older guys as well. I'd like to fight an older established guy rather than a young buck coming up and through. But yeah, look, at the moment beggars can't be choosers, and I'm begging for a fight, and I'm happy to have anyone.
All you're asking is one more fight so you can walk out with your son. You don't care if it's the first fight of the night. You don't care if it's televised or not. You just want to experience that with your son.
That's exactly right. I think that's something he has to go through and deal with so much in his life every day. Anyway, I think this would be a really good experience for him. He came over to my last Olympics when I competed in London and watched. He goes through a lot, and I want this fight, and I think it'd be a good experience for him as well.
I hope you get it, Dan. Best of luck to you and your family. I hope that they grant you this wish. It would be a beautiful thing to see.
Thank you very much. Thanks heaps for having me on.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. There he is, Daniel Kelly. Judo Dan Kelly, who is asking for one more fight in the UFC, the Melbourne card coming up in early February, to walk out with his son Eric. I think that would be a nice gesture, even if he's asking for the first fight of the night, even if he's asking for the untelevised fight on the card, which doesn't happen anymore. It used to happen back in the day. I think it would be a really cool thing. So I appreciate him coming on and waking up early to do that.